Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher. This episode of Preacher is, I want to say it might be my favorite one. It was a really, really good episode altogether. So much went down. Obviously, you finally got Jesse knowing the truth about what the thing is inside of him. We finally learned what it is. Granted, like I said, I was already spoiled already and kind of knew ahead. It's like literally the one thing about this show that I really knew about was that one line about explaining what it is. Genesis being half angel, half demon. I never realized, like, I knew it was like one of the most powerful things in creation because even they were saying it. Because Jesse's trying to explain, he's like, so what's inside me is a half angel, half demon baby. He's like, oh yeah. A baby that's probably the most powerful thing in creation that has a power to literally throw off the balance between heaven and hell, like just bring the whole world into, like, the universe into chaos, just all of existence into chaos. It's like, yeah, sure, it's a baby. Very, like, because I knew it was powerful. I even saw the words like, this thing might be even more powerful than God, but it never really, like, I never really took notice of just how powerful that is. But we've got two instances of just how powerful that is. For one, he has the power to even use it on angels. You would think as just heavenly beings that it wouldn't affect them, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, it is half angel, half demon, so it kind of makes you wonder, like, of course, because it has that kind of power, obviously, it is going to be able to sway, beings of their caliber as well. I don't know, it just never crossed my mind until he used it on them this episode. Then there was that lady. I was thinking, oh god, she's a demon. Like the way they were arguing and they were fighting her, I was like, beating her up. I was like, oh, she's a demon or something. No, she's also an angel, specifically a seraphim. It seems like they're like higher caliber angels. Obviously, I knew that they. I do know their names now. It's Fleur and DeBlanc, right? I knew they weren't anybody special. They were kind of low tier angels or whatever. Basically, they describe themselves as custodians. They were just they just look after and take care of Genesis. Like somehow it got out. Even they don't know how it got out. Plus, they still don't even know why it chose Jesse neither. It's like out of anybody. As we saw, it passed through so many people, but it decided to stick with Jesse. Don't know why, but it did. But I really like that whole, like, literally that is probably my favorite opening so far to this show. Just how crazy that got. Them literally killing, not only her, but themselves over and over again using reconstitution. They did like, oh, how does it work? It's like, I don't know. It just happens. What does it feel like? I don't know. It feels like nothing. We're just, dead one moment and then like, it don't even feel like you're dying. You're just like, oh, I'm back. They don't even understand how it works. It just happens. And I loved it. That motel was riddled with their bodies, her body, and just covered in blood. It was just so awesome. Like, plus we also find out angels can kind of hold their own in a fight because Jesse was like punching her repeatedly in the face. She wasn't even fazed by it, and she kind of pushed him back hard against the wall. So it's like, angels are pretty damn tough. And I don't know, it's weird to see them using like human weapons. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm about to kill you by like shooting you in the face with a gun. Like, the whole encounter was freaking amazing. But what I really liked about this episode is the fact is Jesse, his unwillingness, knowing exactly what this thing is, knowing that it wasn't God inside of him like he thought, there's this thing Genesis, that he's not going to let it go. And they're telling him, you don't know what you're messing with. Because apparently, essentially this thing is kind of like the blight of history for both heaven and hell. Like, they look at it as like, yeah, let's pretend that didn't happen because it's kind of an abomination. And basically both sides made an agreement to, like, this thing is it's so disgusting and just so repulsive. It shouldn't exist. We have to lock it away and pretend like it doesn't exist. And basically they were saying like, we're lucky we're the only ones who know it's gone, because if everyone else, angels and demons, find out that this thing is loose, everyone is going to be coming after you just so they can get this thing themselves, because it's just that freaking powerful. Just to have its power on its own. It's just mind-boggling to think. Just like I said, I knew ahead of time how powerful it was, but to really just, they kind of put it in perspective for you, just like how powerful this thing is. And I don't know, it never really crossed my mind that like, oh yeah, other people would be wanting that power too, both angels and demons. So it hasn't happened yet, but eventually it's going to because it's still kept secret that this thing got out in the first place. And it does make you wonder, how did it get out? Was it with some help? Was there someone else who helped to get out, or did it get out on its own? Don't know. But Jesse is just adamant about not giving it up, believing like, oh yeah, if God wants to like get this thing back, he'll come back and take it from me himself. But they're like, you don't know what you're doing. This thing is beyond anybody's control. It's like, it's not like you're using its power. It's acting out inside of you. Anytime, because to me, I like to think, we really haven't really seen it have a mind of its own. What'd be kind of cool is we could hear like conversations between it and Jesse. It'd be kind of cool if we get like, sometimes Jesse be walking around and it gets like a physical manifestation that you get to see him interact with. Obviously, no one else would be able to see it because it's all inside of his head. But that'd be kind of cool because I'd like to see what Genesis feels about this whole thing. Like, I don't know if that's even a thing in a comic book or not, but I think that'd be kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know maybe it's something that it does happen in a comic book, but maybe it's something that's pretty hard to translate over to the TV show, or maybe it's something that doesn't come up until much later on. But that'd be interesting to kind of get, Genesis' idea on like everything.Maybe Genesis is doing all this because it's having fun. It legitimately likes being inside Jesse. It likes the fact is that Jesse likes using its power. And that's a point I want to bring up again too. I brought this up before. Jesse's up here saying like, oh, like if God wanted, he'd take it back from me. It's like he's using every excuse because he doesn't want to give it up. He says it's because it's God's will. I believe, and there are multiple things that will kind of back up my theory. It's just he doesn't want to give up the power. He enjoys having that power. It's intoxicating. I've said it over and over again. That power is intoxicating. And once you realize just how powerful you are, like, it's easy to like get swayed. Because we had that whole situation with the mayor. He's still dealing with like the backlash of last episode where Odin basically killed all those guys, those people from that company. They're blasting his phone but he's kind of refusing to answer his phone or talk to them. He went to Jesse and was like, yo, I don't know whether I should do this. It's something bad and there's something good. I don't know whether if I do the good thing, a lot of people can be hurt from it. But if I do the bad thing, he's just like, I don't know what to do. Jesse essentially told him to pray on it. He was just like, but how do you know that you're talking to God when you're praying and not just yourself, that you're hearing what you want to hear? And it kind of got Jesse thinking for a second, but he's like, no, you don't sound like God. Like I'm pretty sure they sound very different. It's like you can tell the difference. But it did get Jesse thinking, but he doesn't want to admit it. That the fact that, because he was even asking Emily, he was like, what we're doing is good, right? This has all been good, right? Because he was starting to second guess himself because he's starting to realize maybe it's not God I'm hearing. Maybe I'm so stuck in my own ways. I want to believe, I want to use this for good that I'm willing to believe anything that it is in fact, God talking to me, when in fact it's just me trying to convince myself otherwise because I really don't want to give up this power. It even led to a very interesting thing, like the whole thing with Eugene. Now, Eugene's story was fascinating to me because it's like he's there at his locker and the kid says, hey to him. He's like, he jumps, he kind of curls up a little bit. He's like, I'm sorry. And he was going, wait, what? Someone said, hey to me. Oh, hey. This is kind of Eugene's first experience really having a friend in a long time because pretty much everybody in town, both adults and kids, just despised him. But this is kind of his first time. He was hanging around them. They sat with him at lunch. It was weird for him because he's never, like, it's been a long time since he's gone without being hated. So, but it's just because Jesse made, what was her name? The girl, her mom forgave Eugene, so that's ended up spreading around, and now other, it happening little by little, but without, if she can forgive Eugene, everyone else can, so it's kind of working down like that. But Eugene was just like, he was having fun, but then he was like, preacher, I want you to take it back. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, I don't deserve forgiveness. Because in his mind, he's like, if I'm going to be hated, then I deserve to be hated for what happened. I'm not going to take the easy way out to be forgiven. Because he, in his own words, referred to it as cheating. And it's something I brought up last episode. He has the best of intentions. It's good and everything. But you can't be forcing your will onto other people. Like in Eugene's words, he said it exactly. That basically it comes down to free will, to choice. you're taking that choice away from people. People should be able to make their own choices, but Jesse's kind of got sucked up into power. He's just like, I just have to make the choice for them, because he's talking about, I need him, like, it'll be his way of fulfilling the promise, because he built that little megaphone outside so that basically he can reach more people. And it seems like also that it's not just the power too. It seems like Jesse is willing to make, that promise he made to his dad. He's so adamant about keeping it that it's like he's willing to do anything and everything. It's just like, to him, it's like the moment he does this, it's his way of fulfilling the promise, and then he can just let it go. He feels like he's bound and, chained down by that promise, and he's trying so hard to complete it. But what we still haven't gotten is a clear picture of what led Jesse back home to be in this position, because he hadn't been home in a long time, and it's the whole Carlos thing? Is that the reason why him and Tulips, went separate ways? That he went back home and became a preacher? Like, what really drove him to go back down this path? Because originally, as we see, he was a bit of a criminal. So it does make you wonder what really exactly made him go down this path, because we still haven't got a clear picture of that. And, and then he said it himself. He was just so upset with Eugene. He's like, Eugene, go to hell. We didn't see it, but we heard a sound of him getting sucked up, and turn around, poof, he went to hell. Now it's finally happened. I was wondering in what case it was going to happen, where Jesse finally learns and sees the downside to his power, because he had yet to see it, because the mayor didn't outright tell him about what Odin did. Which I'll get to that in a second, but obviously about those people he killed last episode, and that was because of Jesse, using his power on him. But this is Jesse's first time personally witnessing what his powers can do, meaning that with this power, he has to pick and choose and be careful what he says, because it has meaning. And because I was curious, I was like, what are they going to do with Eugene? Because it seems like we presented his story, but I feel like in this crazy world of Preacher, just with what's going on, what the magnitude of this world is, with heaven, hell, a creature that's kind of a being of half and half, it's like, what part does Eugene play in this? And it's like, he's going to hell now, so it's like, what will that do to him? Like, where will that storyline lead? Like, will Jesse be able to bring him back? Is there any way of bringing him back? I mean, I don't know much about the comic book, but I'm pretty sure Eugene's a pretty important character. So, I don't know. I had a feeling like he was going to come back. Like, his character was going to go down a different path and become something else. Not just someone else, but particularly something else. So, like, he's literally in hell now, just because of what Jesse just said, and it's just, he's going to feel guilty about it. Maybe he will finally realize, I need to calm down with this power. I can't really 100% trust myself, because, he claims he's doing it with the best of intentions, but obviously he's not. That was just like his first, you saw it in his eyes, the first time he's legitimately seen the downside to his powers. Now, other things I want to talk about in this episode, Cassidy for one. Cassidy finally found out the truth about Tulip. We even found out that Jesse actually has a tulip on his back. And it finally hit Cassidy. He's like, you're his tulip that he was talking about. It's like, yeah. And it was so sad, because we see Cassidy, he's so brokenhearted, because he legitimately fell in love with her. But Tulip, the moment that happened, just after that discovery and her and Jesse talking, she quickly moved on. It wasn't even, he's like, oh, what do we do? It's like, Tulip was kind of almost like, what the hell do you mean, what do we do? This was never anything. Like, as we saw last episode, they had sex, but she wasn't into it. It was just kind of like hey, I can't be with Jesse. I guess I'll have to, settle for you. And that's sad. Because it's just like, it meant nothing to her, but it meant everything to Cassidy. I mean, Cassidy's still kind of a blank slate for us, too. We don't know much about his past. He is like a 119-year-old vampire, so it's like, we don't know what his love life has been like in the past. Maybe this is the first time he legitimately fell over heels for a girl in a very, very long time. Maybe he's one of those people that keeps a distance. I don't know, but you just see him brokenhearted. Now, I wonder, will that cause a rift between him and Jesse now? Because Jesse still doesn't know about, the girl that Cassidy had fallen in love with was his quote-unquote tulip. So it does make you wonder, will it cause a rift between them? Or, maybe, because Cassidy has already been adamant about like, yo, Jesse, you need to calm down with this power. You don't really know what this is capable of. It's like, people make mistakes all the time, so you don't know what could be, at the time it's like, you don't really know what this thing is capable of. You never know like what could be the like, drawback from using this thing. But it makes you wonder, like, will him and Jesse be on opposite? Like, he's already adamant about that, but maybe eventually him and Jesse will kind of be on very opposite ends because of the whole Tulip thing. Maybe, because it seems like legitimately Jesse's the only friend he has, not just in town, but in general. There was the person he talked to in, like, the first episode when he was stuck in town because he didn't have any money. So he has allies, but I don't know if he actually legitimately has friends or not. And speaking of Tulip, we also got a very interesting look at her being very possessive, where she busted into Emily's house and threw down like one of those art things her daughter had made for her, and was basically like, stay away from my boyfriend. So we really get to see just how possessive she is. Granted, it's kind of like we've kind of become aware of that because the fact is she came to town looking for him. He told her to kind of leave, and she stayed, and she's just kind of popped in and out of it. Ever since she found him again, she's been popping in and out of his life. So, which it seems like she still hasn't dealt with the whole Carlos situation. It seems like more like she is still waiting for Jesse before she acts upon it, because it's not just her revenge, it's their revenge, so she wants him to take part in it. But what I really liked is we ended up getting her, like Emily and Tulip, actually sitting down and having a like heart-to-heart, actually talking a little bit. We find out a little bit more about Tulip. She named a couple of the places her and Jesse had been. They've kind of been a little bit all over the place. But they just legitimately talking. There was a question Emily was going to ask her about Jesse, but she didn't get a chance to ask her. So I was very curious. I was like, I'm wondering what that question would have been. But we ended up also finding out big information is that Tulip actually had a little girl of her own. And, did she, let me take that back, because I don't know if she actually said a little girl. She didn't. She said she had a kid, but never specify was it a little girl or a little boy. But that's very interesting, because that makes you, from what it sounds like, she lost her. And, Tulip's a pretty young lady, so it's like she must have been like a super young mom. It makes you wonder what the circumstances were. And could those circumstances be why she is the way she is? I've mentioned it before, because someone, like I said, I've mentioned this before, that someone had previously mentioned that Tulip isn't 100% the way she is in the comic books. Like, she eventually gets to the way she is in the show, eventually a little ways into the comic book, but in the beginning she was kind of more, I guess, meekish, very kind of beaten down woman. So it makes you wonder, could this child she had have been one of the reasons, like losing that child, been one of the reasons she became the way she is? I mean, who knows? Like, because from the way they talk about Tulip, it makes me seem like Tulip, wasn't always kind of like, the criminal type. It seemed like she was kind of just a nice girl back in the day, but then eventually she became the criminal her and Jesse became. So, I don't know, that was kind of interesting, like, to me. I did like the fact that she was, like, offering to do stuff for Emily, like, I can look after your kid while you run your errands, or I can run your errands for you, whatever you want. So it's kind of interesting, her friending Emily a little bit. It does seem like it does bother Emily a little bit when Jesse later on was like, oh, thank you, and Tulip. And the moment he mentioned Tulip, you kind of see her kind of scrunch, like, I don't know, scrunch, it's not a fucking word, I'm being an idiot. You just see her kind of like have an uneasy look. Like, I think she was happy that he was thankful for her, but the moment he mentioned Tulip too, it just, I don't know, because she secretly has feelings for him, but it's just like, I don't know, I don't think she's not as forthright with it as I guess she should be, because Tulip is blunt about it. She's like, Jesse's my boyfriend, I came here to get him back, I love him, even though, because what I like is at the beginning she made it seem like it was kind of a love-hate thing. She's like, I know you hate me, Jesse. And it's like, no, I don't hate you, Tulip, I never could. She made it seem like that they were on very opposite ends, but it, like, it does seem like she said that because she is still in love with him. Maybe it was her way of trying to convince herself she didn't, but it's just so obvious that she's still in love with him. And it does make you wonder what the history really is between them. Just overall, a really amazing episode. I just cannot wait to see where things go. I'm surprised, like, it was never really brought up, but now that he knows about the whole heaven thing, does that mean Jesse now believes Cassidy about the whole vampire thing. It never came up. He sees Cassidy outside with all the stuff on, so he never went back to tell Cassidy, like, oh, you were serious about the whole vampire thing, right? That never came up, so I'm curious. I'm thinking he still doesn't believe Cassidy about the whole thing, so, I mean, but, even maybe he does, because he is a little more open-minded now after everything he's experienced this episode. But we also ended the episode with the fact is that basically the mayor's calling the company to tell them, like, oh, your people are dead. It was an accident. Considering who he is, Odin's is the most powerful man. Granted, excluding Jesse, powerful man in the whole town. And he was able to cover it up, which I'm not surprised. Like I said, Jesse is still blind to the fact of what happened there. Especially, still doesn't know about the dude from the first episode who he was like, oh yeah, like, open your heart up. And he did it in front of his mom. So, I don't know. Very interested to see what happens next episode, where Cassidy and Jesse stand, what Tulip's going to be up to. Find out specifically like what's going to happen with this whole Odin situation with those people that died, and especially considering the mayor most likely helped him cover it up too. That was kind of my suspicions. It wasn't really confirmed or anything. The fact is he kept quiet about it makes me think that Odin kind of told him to keep quiet about it. And I guess he's keeping quiet about it because of multiple reasons. One, as the mayor, he's kind of responsible. He'll be held responsible, so he's trying to remove himself from the situation, because they could be like, oh, he was there, so they could have been like, oh, he was a participant in it, that he was an accomplice. So that, or it's because Odin was just like, we're doing God's work, so shut your mouth, or something like that. I don't know. We didn't really see that side of it, but it does seem like the mayor is a compliant participant in covering this whole thing. So I'm curious about that. Plus, the whole thing with Eugene, like, what's going to happen to him? What is Jesse going to do now that he sees what his power is capable of? I get the feeling when Eugene comes back, he won't be 100% himself. Maybe he won't even be human when he goes back. Who knows? Don't know how heaven and hell necessarily work in this world. So very curious. Got some answers, but all along with those answers, obviously even more questions, and I'm just loving it. I was super excited. Like I said, I already knew the bits about Genesis that we kind of got presented and stuff. I already knew it. I kind of spoiled that, like the first episode review I did, quote unquote review. I always have to say that because I don't really count these as reviews, but I guess technically they are. Nevertheless, it's just, I already knew what it was, so, but still, like, I was giddy. I was like, yes, Jesse's finding out the truth, let me hear it. And he said Genesis, like, yeah, say its name. I did kind of like the fact that Cassidy kept just going like, oh, that's a freaking terrible name. Why would they name it Genesis? That's a terrible, terrible name. So, like I said, all around amazing episode. Cannot wait for next week's episode. Super excited. I honestly want to say this is probably currently the show that I look forward to the most every week. I love everything else I'm watching, but I just look forward to this the most. It's like, oh, yep, Sunday's here. Time for Preacher. So, but nevertheless, that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.